Good evening. It's a Saturday night, and I'm not going anywhere. I was not going to look at that Rolling Stone list, but I like talking about guitar players, and the guitar geeks that I listen to were all commenting on it. This list of 250 all-time greatest guitarists include Lou Reed, Peter Buck, Lucy Dacus, Viv Albertine. Not included on this list are Andre Segovia, Les Paul, Joe Pass, Carlos Montoya, George Benson. You get the idea. From the opening statements of this list, in making this list, we tended to value heaviness over tastiness. And here's a statement that really muddies the waters. We also tended to give an edge to artists who channeled whatever gifts God gave them into great songs and game-changing albums, not just impressive playing. Songwriting and album production are very separate skills. I've known wonderful songwriters who could barely play guitar. I've heard some wonderful studio albums made by artists who are just not so great live. Maybe we can consider innovation, influence, and technique as criteria. If I had to make such a list, I would identify many branches of guitar playing and then contact master players who really know the various particular styles to help compile the master list. The players would be numbered but not ranked and organized in sections. It was good to see Bert Jansch on this list, but if Bert were here and saw his name on this list, he would be looking for a few other players that he knew. Bert considered himself to be primarily a singer-songwriter and arranger of traditional tunes. He played the guitar in a style that was heavily influenced by Davy Graham. As a matter of fact, all of the players in his musical universe were all listening to Davy Graham. John Renbourn, Martin Carthy, Alexis Korner, Gordon Giltrap, Whiz Jones, John Martin, Jimmy Page were all under the influence of Graham, as was Paul Simon, who recorded Angie on Simon and Garfunkel's breakthrough album Sound of Silence. Davy Graham is the first name to put on this branch. In Pentangle, it was John Renbourn who was putting out the solo guitar records. Albums like Sir John a Lot, The Black Balloon, The Hermit, duo albums with Stephen Grossman, and so many other recordings influenced Pierre Bensoussan, Alex DeGrassi, and Clive Carroll, just to mention a few. Martin Carthy's guitar playing has influenced guitar players over the past 60 years, including people like Richard Thompson, Nick Jones, Chris Foster, Paul Simon. Graham, Renbourn, and Carthy would all be on my list. It was nice to see Molly Tuttle on this list. She is indeed an awesome player. The first name anyone in that universe of music would be looking for is Doc Watson. He popularized the picking of fiddle tunes on the guitar and introduced an elegant style of country song accompaniment that formed the basis of what was to come with pickers like Norman Blake, Tony Rice, and pretty much everyone else in the field of acoustic country music. They got Clarence White on the list, that was good. But in between Clarence White and Molly Tuttle, you absolutely need to put Tony Rice. Everyone from the late 70s on had to learn their Tony Rice licks. Everyone wants to sound like Tony Rice. They did well with the Nashville players. They got Tommy Emmanuel, they got Chet Atkins, Merle Travis. The one player they left out, Lenny Burrell. He was essential, particularly to people like Tommy Emmanuel and Richard Smith. He introduced those harmonics that they play, the jazz voicing, Fingerstyle jazz players. George Van Epps needed to be on the list. Ted Green, Joe Pass, maybe Jody Fisher. How about a section called Journeyman Guitarist? Tommy Tedesco, Howard Roberts, Carol Kay, so many greats. Well, I try to keep these talking videos around 5 minutes, so in conclusion, I would like to say that breaking the list into groups of styles and functions would produce a much more educational and useful list. In a straight list, a guitarist like Richie Havens would not be mentioned. But if you have a section called Strumming Rhythm Guitar Players, Richie Havens would be at the top. A player like Irish guitarist John Doyle, who has been so influential in the Irish and Celtic community, would also be on the list. Guitar educators, how important are Mel Bay, Pete Seeker, Stefan Grossman, Happy Traum? I'm hoping a different list emerges that would be done this way. However, anything that gets us to discover new music is a good thing. Good night.